This is Radar for On the Radar Entertainment Blog, coming to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations, number 34. So the first movie I watched this week was a movie that takes place in the past. They're trying to make it like historical. It's on one of these islands where they're considered the people to be, barbarians. Like, they're not humans, like, because, they're not as sophisticated. And supposedly it's this guy who's been living, like, well there and with the women and stuff. And both Johnny Depp and Robert Pattinson are sent over there to oversee what's going on and see things. And it just drags on and on and on and on and on. And you're like, okay, there's no need for this movie, but if there was, it'd have to be almost 2 hours long. So yeah, you're like, cool. It's got Johnny Depp and Robert Pattinson. Ooh, Mark Rylance. Ooh, it's just like, yeah, don't watch it. Then I watched the movie High Note. And you know what? Dakota Johnson, Tracy Ellis Ross, they did a very good job, and Ice Cube was in there. And it's basically this famous singer. She's been for years, and Ice Cube's her manager, and she's had the same assistant for years. But her goals, but she realized she wants to be a producer, and it's like a romantic comedy in a way about her and her life as well. Her roommates, involved in it. Then her father's supposedly a famous disc jockey. All these things like that, and then she meets a guy, and then the guy is also a singer, and it's all this interesting story. And you know what? It's above average movie. It wasn't inappropriate, and it's an hour and 40-something minutes. And if you want to laugh and you want to hear some good music sing in the back in the video and when you're watching it, movie, you like it. Tracy Ellis Ross's mother is the famous Diana Ross, the leader of the girl group Supremes from Motown. Her own solo career singing, her own acting career. So her daughter get a chance to show off her voice, and it was pretty good. So it's a very good story, love story, music story. You laugh. It's not that long. So yeah, it's a very good job. I haven't watched her in Blackest, but she did a very good job in this movie. And then the next thing I watched was a documentary called Robbie Robertson and the Band, Once We Were Brothers. And it's about the band that was Bob Dylan's band, but then they went solo and they had all these talented musicians, and some of them sang, and they're great songwriters. And they had Bob Dylan, of course, interviewed. They had Eric Clapton and Bruce Springsteen, some of the greatest guitarists of all time. And it's from Martin Scorsese and Ron Howard and all this thing. And it was pretty good to learn more and more about them. And they're like this it thing for so many years. But then, you know how it is. Egos with money, drugs, women, and all these things, and credit for things that it fell apart. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. Then I watched Superman Men of Tomorrow. And I wouldn't say the guy from Glee and the guy who played Music Maestro, Darren Criss, would be a great job at playing Superman, but he was okay, because it's like a young Superman starting out the Daily Planet. I never heard of the woman playing Wonder Woman. Neil Flynn playing, Jonathan Kent, the father, him from Scrubs in the middle, and Bellamy Young playing Martha Kent, the mother, and Zachary Quinto playing Lex Luthor, really good. I think it's better than Rainn Wilson's Lex Luthor. And then the Martian Manhunter is a is a voice actor. I never heard of him, but he's pretty good. And then the one who played Parasite character, Brett Dalton, we all know him from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so as Agent Ward. And then, the person voicing Lobo did a pretty good job. And yeah, it was an interesting story where Superman's a young, intern starting him. He's just starting to be a superhero. He's got to face off Lobo and Martian Manhunter's in the movie and all these other things. And it was pretty good. Wasn't that long. Wasn't inappropriate. It was just a nice, introduction into Superman and his relationship with Lex Luthor and all these other characters. And yeah, so I think maybe they can make a sequel or a trequel. But yeah, it was a nice when DC makes movies that are, like based off famous graphic novels, where they make their own interpretations, not off continuity all at once. Then I watched this movie called Mortal Kombat Legends: Scorpion's Revenge. And I haven't played Mortal Kombat game since I was a kid. I have done Injustice, and they got Mortal Kombat characters, so I'm familiar with it. But basically, the Scorpion character thinks that Sub-Zero has killed him, and he's out for revenge. And when he's like in their sort of like version of hell, he's the opportunity to come back, but he has to do the bidding of the person that brought him back to life in the Mortal Kombat tournament. And then Earth is at risk, and of course it's bloody, it's gory, it shows when the bones are broken and the ligaments are teared. And they got a stereotypical like Bruce Lee character. They had the Shogun. They had all the characters, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Shogun. They had all these characters, if I'm saying his name right, throughout the thing. The guy protects Earth, it's the hat and everything. And then they have, Jennifer Carpenter from both Limitless and The Enemy Within. She was voicing like this soldier. Michael Richardson voiced some character. And Joel McHale played a stuck-up, actor who's good at martial arts, and he's in it, so it was interesting. And it was an hour like 17 minutes, so not that bad. It didn't take that long to watch. It was a little graphic and gory, and I wasn't familiar with all the characters in this thing, but yeah, it was pretty good. I would watch it if you're a fan of animated movies, and DC, like Warner Brothers, made it, so it was like really good animation as well. And then I watched a drug kingpin like type of movie like called Arkansas. And it's like Clark Duke's passion project where he wrote, directed it, wrote, directed, produced it. His brother was in it, and he got to get John Malkovich, Vince Vaughn, Vivica A. Fox, Michael K. Williams, and of course Liam Hemsworth to star in the movie because the movie's about Liam Hemsworth's character and that Clark Duke and him work together. They don't know who they're working for, but the movie takes place over multiple decades, so it's like showing how Vince Vaughn, who's in charge, becomes the charge of everything, how everything works, who's the middleman, and things like that. And, how Clark Duke and Liam Hemsworth are just, they work for him, they don't know anything about it, and they just keep doing their job. And it wasn't bad. It didn't have to be, an hour 50-something minutes. It probably could have been an 80, 90-minute Clark Duke, passion project. We know him from, like, Hot Tub Time Machine and 2.5 Men, and he's not good enough to, like, carry a movie, which is why he got Liam Hemsworth, Vince Vaughn, John Malkovich, Michael K. Williams, Vivica A. Fox. And then, he also wrote that he gets that cute girl, and they have gets her, and they have a baby. All the other stuff with Eden Brolin, who I didn't know Josh Brolin had a daughter who acted. It's like Ethan Hawke and Judd Apatow having their daughters act. It's like, okay, cool, but yeah, I would watch it. It's a little bit too long, and it's not the world's greatest script, and it's not makes the most sense and everything like that. But you see all the people you've heard of before, so you know what? It was pretty good. Overall, there's some interesting plot twists in there. Not bad. Then I watched the movie Irresistible with Steve Carell. Supposedly Jon Stewart made this guy from Daily Show. And it has Rose Byrne in it. And it's got Natasha Lyonne, Topher Grace, Mackenzie Davis, Chris Cooper. It also has the woman from, the show Will and Grace. She's in that, Deborah Messing. So it's like basically what happens. It takes place in a very small town. And there's a local, farmer who's a veteran, who's a general, and he doesn't like how the mayor's running the town, and the video goes viral, and Steve Carell works for a huge firm that goes out there and wants to help his campaign and help him as, a Democrat, because the mayor's Republican in that small town in Wisconsin. Supposedly it's been Republican the whole entire time, and things haven't changed. And the guy playing the mayor is Brett Sexton, and Chris Cooper, who plays the main character, plays the guy, the guy who's running. Jack Hastings, his daughter is Mackenzie Davis, who's seen before, and people in the town I've seen before, like Will Sasso, and there's a guy from Superstore who's in there, Will McLaughlin, and you're like, cool, and you're just like, okay, got all these people in this movie that you've seen before, and it's like, okay, it's a small town, they need the help, and then it goes off the rails when Rose Byrne decides, because she's a rival of Steve Carell, that they're going to go back and forth and try to who has to win the campaign, who has all the money and things like that. And it kind of gets out of hand, mudslinging, all the things that you would think in a movie. And it wasn't bad, It was funny at moments. It was quirky a bit because Steve Carell's character is like, I've never been in a small little town, where the hotel isn't the same as the bar. And everybody knows your name, so it was interesting. He played a character who never experienced that because he's from the big time Washington D.C. And being a 90-something-minute comedy, it wasn't bad. So yeah, I'd watch it. It was cute. It was clever. And then I watched a movie that's somewhat Holocaust adjacent called The Song and Name. It's where Tim Roth and Clive Owen are the adult versions of these kids. So during the mist before World War II starts, there's this Polish Jewish boy who's like a prodigy, and Tim Roth's father is like this rich British guy. Says, sure, I'm going to have him come here, play in England and get better and learn all this lessons, and we'll let him stay here because, because he's not going to travel back and forth from Poland to United Kingdom just for lessons. And the movie basically is Tim Roth is to search for him because all of a sudden his friend, who was orphaned because of the Holocaust, because what happened in Poland during the Holocaust, the movie's about him trying to find his friend because there was one night he vanishes decades before. Decades, not decades, but he was a little boy, Then when he was like a young adult, it disappears one night. The father go through all this trouble for the Tim Roth father go all through trouble making this whole production of a theater friend the duo show because he's this prodigy, and he disappears. And then the movie's goes back and forth with how Tim Roth is in his current life and what he does for a living, and how he's been looking for him. And there's like leads to if he was still in the United Kingdom area, if he went back to Poland, where he was. And it was all about trying to figure out where, he was. So it was interesting that, because obviously the flashbacks and the present kind of confuse you of like where in the movie it all goes and stuff. But it was kind of rewarding, the movie, to, when he finds the guy and he explains everything. And even though Clive Owen isn't Jewish, it's interesting that he's playing a Jew who speaks like Yiddish and Hebrew and does all the religious things like that. So it was just, overall interesting movie. A little, it made me a little sad and stuff. The way it ended, it was not that inappropriate. It was a PG-13 movie. So yeah, song and name, pretty good. Then I watched this big passion project that Judd Apatow decided, you know what? I'm going to take Pete Davidson, who is supposedly the king of Staten Island, who cannot do impressions, screws up on sketch comedy, is only funny as himself on, Weekend Update. Let's make a movie about his life. Yes, it's tragic. He lost his fire in 9/11, and, he's been living with his mother and all the other stuff. So it's a movie about his life, but it's like a dramatization where, same thing, father, all the other stuff. He's a screw-up. He wants to be a tattoo artist. And that Belle Powley plays his girlfriend, and he's got friends in the movie, like Moldis Arias from Hannah Montana, and Marissa Tomei plays his mother. So anytime you get Marissa Tomei to play her mother, and Belle Powley play her girlfriend, Moldis Arias to be your buddy, that's pretty cool. But he hangs out with the bad crowds, he keeps screwing up in life. And then, of course, Judd Apatow, as I mentioned, casted his daughter to play Pete's sister. And then you see, like, there are character actors like Kevin Corrigan, who plays his uncle, and he's from, Grounded for Life, and he's a good character actor. Bill Burr plays the mother's love interest and one of the firefighters. And so does Steve Buscemi. You're like, Steve Buscemi and Bill Burr in a movie, and you're in this movie, you're pretty darn lucky to be in this movie with them. And then Lisa Traeger, who's a Jewish comedian from the area, who I know of, I've talked to before, she had a brief role in this movie. And then Dominic Lombardozzi plays one of the firefighters, and I know him from Entourage, and him from Rosewood, so interesting to see him. And then Pamela Adlon played Bill Burr's ex-wife, and it was interesting to see her in the movie. Machine Gun Kelly, who's a famous musician, he's in the movie. Robert Smigel's in the movie. And they get, a lot of famous people to be in this small-time movie. And really what it is like he's a screw-up, and then he realizes, he's got to change his life around, be a better sibling, a better son, actually act like a real adult and take responsibility, and all the other stuff. But, of course, it takes 2 hours plus to watch this movie. It's 2 hours, 17 minutes of credits. And I'm like, you could have told the story about Pete Davidson in, like, an hour and a half, an hour 40, maybe 2 hours. But it was like a lot of the movie was just, like, wasted. He was like, okay, where is this going? It was only the second half of the movie where it started to get better. But overall, I laughed. It was okay. A good amount of actors you've seen in a while. Not bad. It's just not as great as everybody said it was. But, yeah, you should watch King of Staten Island. Watch Song and Names and Irresistible. The reason you should watch it is, besides from being clever and some humor, even though it's not the best movie ever, there's a good plot twist. Arkansas, a good plot twist. Interesting drug king movie of Clark Duke's passion project. Mortal Kombat Legend, The Scorpion's Revenge, pretty good. Superman, Man of Tomorrow, pretty darn good. And Once We Were Brothers, Robbie Robinson, the band documentary, good to be more educated in the high note. Pretty good movie about a famous singer. The only movie I would never watch to set you to watch Waiting for a Barbarian. Thanks for listening to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observation number 34 for our On the Radar Entertainment blog. I'm Radar. See you guys next time.